Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, back at it again, sharing a nostalgia hit for everyone. Let's talk about your very first PC and what they were like. If you'd like to share what your first PC was like, please leave it down in the comments below. Tabletop game in a high school setting. DM is a super gay ultra weeb who's still going through a late onset cringe phase. High school has moved on to a cruise ship for some reason. Have been watching Retsapure, especially their series on Dead to Rights. Get the perfect character concept. Session begins after charging. I come into my first class. I am Longshoreman X. 17 years old and already have a full-length beard. Muscle bound as fuck. Wears a yellow raincoat and wields fishing spears and a pole. Prays to the sea gods every night before bed. Go to theater class. It's a production of The Little Mermaid. See a mechanical shark. The urge to fish consumes me. Cast the line. The dude in the mechanical shark suit panics and books it. Hang on tight, trying to reel him in. Catch him after a long and arduous chase. Sock him for being an imposter. How dare you trick I, Longshoreman X! Eventually, towards the end of the first campaign edition, Longshoreman X literally becomes a god through his sheer awesome and command of the sea. That face when a few years later I learned what a longshoreman actually is. That's okay, just a little pat on the back there, just to excuse you from the language that you've been using, maybe a little slappity-pappity-poppity-bippity-boppity-boopity. Durple, the Gnome Ranger, with his best bro, Ronald Reagan, the Elf Troop. Specialize in slings. Eventually make magic item to count sling feats to just throwing rocks. Kill dragons and demons by throwing pebbles at them. Meanwhile, Ronald Reagan was always a bear. Even had the ability to talk as a bear. Durple and Ronald Reagan teamed up. Eventually convinced DM that Ronald Reagan was my animal companion. A town named Powder Keg catches on fire. Gotta save Grandma from falling. Ronald Reagan picks up the old woman and throws her out the window. Durple comes in to catch her with his 25 strength. That campaign slowly dissolves due to school. It was fun while it lasted. Be about 8 years old. Invited to a game where my older sister is a player. Game is a furry homebrewed system. Knowing what I do now about the community, I sometimes wonder if I was put there to put a damper on anything too weird and overly sexual. At the time, I had no idea. That or something other nefarious was going on, which I would not recommend and I would immediately run from. It's kind of a fantasy equivalent to the immediate post-French Revolution. For time out of mind, certain highly magical races were in charge of everything, but now the much more numerous, less magical former underclass seized control of one nation and is engaging in a continent-wide war to purge the rest of us. Played a disposed, shape-shifting nobleman. Kind of a jack-of-all-trades sort, mostly because I couldn't make a decision as to what I wanted them to specialize as. I was somewhat effective, but not hugely. Campaign dispersed due to real-life issues. Probably his best moment was luring a guy out of a bar that we needed to get alone by starting a fight with him and then shape-shifting my bones to make a literally unbreakable grip. The bouncers eventually gave up trying to separate us and just threw the both of us out. Honestly, I'm glad that you escaped that little dungeon because it could have only went one way. 2nd edition AD&D Halfling Thief in a dungeon crawl my uncle ran when I was a kid. That face when your character only lives long enough to be used by your cousins to bait out enemies. That face when your uncle reintroduces a clone of your character so that you can keep playing, only for you to die by wizard. Fireball! 2nd edition, human and dark earth setting. This can't go well. Created an arcane scientific archer. Was the only practical PC. Was slowly turned into Hawkeye who made marksman puns. Died to a mage with Windwall. The ultimate kryptonite. 3rd edition, half-elf rogue with punch dagger. Chaotic neutral. Stole loot. Caused a TPK. I am now the GM. We need some clarity, context, and some, icy hot for them burns. 3.5 edition homebrew my friend made, trying to capture the magic mechanics of Lord of the Rings. It wasn't very good. Decided to make a kobold sorcerer, asked him if it was okay. Ended up making a 3-foot-tall megalomaniac who's this horrific combination of accidentally edgy and painfully earnest. How does that even work? Starting in an underground goblin town, go around getting odd jobs. Get hired to explore a dungeon. Walk in the door, there are skeletons. Remember, I'm a 3.5 edition sorcerer at first level, and I have like 9 con besides. 4 HP is a hell of a drug. Get knocked unconscious in the first hit. Get dragged back to town by some goblins that find my bleeding out ass. Run back to the dungeon, get repeatedly murdered by skeletons. All in all, a fine start for what would become a tradition of getting horribly murdered by skeletons in RPGs. Dwarven Bard. His shtick was that he was an awful comedian. After years of failure and disappointing his dad with his career choices, he decides to achieve fame as an adventurer instead. Had an inordinate amount of strength for a bard, and did some heavy lifting in the campaign, wink wink. First edition AD&D, Human Cleric. Ooh, got level drained by a wight twice in the same adventure, so he had to reach 4th level like 3 times. Reached 8th level before retiring after getting a lot of giant treasure. Had him die of old age and leave behind some minor magic items and a plot hook for a campaign I ran years later. That's a cute and clever way to end a character. Human Fighter. Sent to go slay a dragon, this cannot end poorly. At level 1, this is going to end horribly. Instead, befriend the dragon. This sounds great. Go on adventures with the dragon. Become renowned dragoon. People loved us. Major villain struck dragon down in aerial combat. I plummeted to the ground and died. DM didn't know what to do after that. The game just kind of fizzled and died. I have never played as a player since then. What, have you been like a DM the whole time, or what's going on? Pretty typical high fantasy world made by my buddy for a big first-time game with a lot of our friends. I played a down-on-his-luck old wizard who earned a living doing sideshow tricks. Also, I was the only magic user in the group. Immediately get laughed at by everyone in the party when I fail a strength test to lift some hammer to pledge my oath to our quest to the local lord. During a carriage ambush by goblins, Wizard Man kills the leader with a swing of his staff, and I claim his trident. For many encounters for the rest of the game, my trident strikes true and kills me some hefty foes. And I try every chance to use it reasonably over magic. Late into the adventure, we take a pit stop at our barbarians' bros fishing village. Giant amphibian sea beast drawn to the artifact that we carry. Wizard Bro sacrifices himself by diving off into the monster's mouth, riding the trident like a pogo stick. After that, I made a paladin, but the elf player got butthurt over something and the game died out not long after. Over-specialized social dude. 31 in social skills, 13 in combat skills. Uses a 357 Magnum. Talks his way out of 57% of his problems. Making big money because job is based on skill and I maxed that. Group has to carry my dude through combat. Realize how much money I have. Realize how useless I am in combat. Read through high-tech book. Realize I can legally buy a World War II Russian tank. Fix the tank up. 18 intelligence, 8 wisdom. I'm a tank.jpg. At this point, I'm basically drowning my enemies in gold. And to top it all off, his name was Jim Davis. Oh god. My first character was teenage lol random cancer. Human Bard in 3rd edition. 6-foot transsexual prostitute who'd screw anything for the right price. Screwed an entire village of deformed mutants so I'd have enough money to afford a ring of protection at level 2. Used whips as my main weapon. Weird obsession with unicorns. Desecrated as many corpses as I cold. Splashed around in demon blood. Tried to feed a corpse a severed leg because I thought the corpse was a unicorn and the leg was a carrot. Constantly tried to ride on the lizard man's back in the heat of battle. Somehow, the only character not to die. My first character was Oscar, half-orc paladin. Team Mom. Constantly reining in and playing the straight man too. Sister's halfling bard. Adopted a little shit of a teenager. Trying to teach him to be good, or at least competent. Freakishly good AC due to build and magic shield. Spends a lot of time on fire. DM is super flaky, so I'm still waiting on him to finish his story. It's 1991. I'm enamored with the Mandarin's rings. Buddy is starting a D&D campaign. Tell him I want Mandarin's rings. We look up the information together. I didn't know at this time, but in D&D you can only equip 2 rings. 10 f***ing rings, baby. Mwah. They're loaded with cantrips, shocking grasp, burning hands, etc. Adventure around for a bit. Get some levels. Get upgrades for the rings. The game was basically just running around killing shit. We were 11 or 12 and getting stronger rings. It was pretty fun but simple. Hey, listen, you could have drawn inspiration from Captain Planet at that point, or the Wonder Twins if you really wanted to play something weird. Freshman year, 3.5 D&D. Chaotic good cleric, 64 years old, swears all the time. Constantly tries to get ladies. We're 14 and don't understand charisma, so he totally does. I physically recoil in anguish when I think about those sessions late at night. Yeah, I know how that feels being 14 and not knowing how your hormones work. Oh god, half-elf cleric named after a Japanese power metal band. A pleasant fellow who would take lots of risks to save his allies. Worshipped the sun goddess who gave him the power to protect others. Walked around in full plate armor with a helmet that always has his face covered in shadow. Took near fatal damage after a serious battle. Winds up going missing after the party takes a long rest, leaving his helmet behind. Party member eventually finds him and sees his true face. He's a zombie. It's then revealed that he was revived by the goddess out of pity for being one of her last remaining disciples. Galnerius was a good boy. I hope I pronounced that right. First game of any sort of dice rolling RPG. Online, some TG horror light brew being tested. Decide to just roll the character. Only good stat was them physical educations. Paperphobe. Did not take class seriously. Decided to play her as an idiot. Game was short, pretty sure it collapsed due to some sort of misunderstanding on IRC. Later, after the game collapsed, decided to expand the backstory to her being the byproduct of a caring single mom and her papriophobia being due to mother's ex-boyfriend paper-cutting her as a form of discipline. That's all terrible, awful, icky, and kind of an interesting backstory. Having been a Dragonlance fan and the DM wanted a sleeper trader character, I was given a few notes before his creation. High five for being a Dragonlance fan. Human fighter that cross-leveled in Sorcerer, goes by the name White Helm because his helm is painted white, was an orphan nomad child before being bought to be made a foot soldier of the Legion of Voss, was raised by the Legion and made my way to captain. When our post was attacked by the good guys, my guy murdered the other officers for trying to loot and run, leaving our troops to die alone. Party finds him standing over their corpses covered in blood. He panics and waves, saying, "You're welcome!" I can't believe he got away with bullshitting his way out of being mass murked. He joins the team and helps them out, planning to betray them down the line. Travels with them, waiting for that right moment. Starting to have fun with these guys. Starts actually caring enough to go out of his way to save some of the NPCs. Sharing potions, you know, the standard fare. Eventually, you fight the big bad, a shadow dragon and a level 20 sorcerer's body. We've all become legends at this point. Feeling good. We barely survived the first half, lose a few players in the second, but we prevail. Fists high and cheering, and I'm told to roll a wisdom test. I fail. The dragon possessed him and the others don't know. 8 years later, in real life, in the revival campaign, the party has to stop a madman with a white helmet from reviving the Legion of Voss. That is an incredible backstory, and I love it. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and if you'd like to tell us about your very first player character, please do in the comments below. But unlike a few of these stories, please make sure that they are at least a little bit more friendly, or I would dare say a little bit more politically correct, because some of them seem to be a little bit too edgy, if you know what I mean. That said, we love you all, and we want everyone out there to be happy, safe, healthy, and otherwise A-okay. See you later, everyone. Bye for now.